थे।
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We welcome all our guests who have joined us from all over the world to another episode in the series Dawah Ilallah, where we look at how to call people from different persuasions, from different parts of the world, from different religions, from different backgrounds, to the truth that is found only in submitting to Allah. And when you invite people to submit to Allah, they will want to read about Allah, which is found in the Quran. When they read the Quran, it will lead them on to all the other avenues of dawah. But we are specifically speaking about in this series, Dawah Ilallah. And we are calling people to submit to their Creator, to acknowledge their Creator. And so far, in the series, we have looked at the fact that dawah is necessary to correct and transform the lives of people around us. Just like the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was sent to this world to correct the teachings of those previous religions, those previous generations that came before him, who had gone into error for many, many different reasons. Some of them because they enforced their own wisdom, some of them because they wanted their own power, some of them because they wanted to put their flag of nationalism in another area, and so they used religion as a means to an end. Many of the wars, in fact, the vast majority, and I don't want to put a percentage on it, but it's a great percentage, more than 90, have been wars that were fought not because of religion, but because of politics. And religion was an afterthought. Let's fight this country. What is the purpose we're going to fight? We want their land, we want their money, we don't want to pay back the money we loan from them, we don't like their king, we're jealous of their wives, they want their river, we want their resources, whatever it might be. That was the reason they went into war. But then they needed to justify it. And they said, no, we're doing this in the name of God. That was an afterthought. Many people say, oh, all wars in the world are fought because of religion. It's not true. All wars are fought in the world because of the reasons I gave. And an afterthought, they throw in religion. Generally speaking, there are a few exceptions. But the vast majority are because of the other reasons. Then we looked at the teachings that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had brought, and how his message was very clear that the dawah that we should be doing is calling to Allah. So we are supposed to be directing and guiding people to the truth that is found in true submission to Allah. And we looked at a number of points, and we did a refresher last week of these different points. Now today we are going to continue with a point before we move on to the next section. And the book that we are using in looking and referring to how to do Dawah Ilallah is from an author. His name is Dr. Saeed Ahmed, who is a man who wrote this document that we are going through. There are many courses available on Dawah. There are many different Dawah training courses, but I found his to be the most balanced. Not leaning to this school or that school, or belonging to that group or that group. He's sort of generally accepted by all the different groups. And this is why I have chosen to use his as the foundation which we are building on. After we have finished this book, then we'll be going into our own look at the topic of Dawah Ilallah, inshallah. But we're using this to gain a foundation. It's always important that we don't reinvent the wheel. The wheel already exists. So let's look at the next point that we found that he brings up in his book. And our brother will read it to us, and then we will comment on it afterwards.
The Prophet advised Muslims to communicate his teachings to others. He said, communicate from me even though it may be one verse. Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu narrated this in Sahih al-Bukhari. This order is to all Muslim male and female, young or old, lettered or unlettered, Arab or non-Arab alike.
So we see from this that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, you don't have to be a PhD. You don't have to be the greatest and the most intelligent person in the world. You just have to speak one verse, or even one ayah, or one letter even, if that's all you know. I remember speaking to a group in South Africa at the mosque, the way I go. And there were a whole lot of German tourists that had come from Pop Idols. You know that program, Pop Idols? They were visiting the country. And these young men and these young women that were at this mosque tour that they wanted to come to, when they came to the mosque tour, they looked at everything and nothing really interested them. I was showing them, I thought, this is going to get through to these people, because generally, mosque tours are very, very powerful tools of doing dawah. Nothing was getting through to them. And I thought, oh Allah, please, help me to get through to these young people. They were just looking bored. They couldn't wait to get out of there. What a waste of 45 minutes. That's what they were thinking to themselves. And then it came to me. Yes, Arabic. Have you heard when somebody narrates how beautiful it sounds? How every single marking on every single letter tells us how to pronounce it exactly the same, no matter what time period we're living in. And so I decided to focus on that. And their faces all lit up. And they started to smile, and they started to connect with something. So you can share just one thing, one concept, not literally only one verse. If that's all you know, you don't know much else about Islam, and that's all you know, that's what you talk about. And so we have to find a connection with people. So you don't need to know everything. I always say in my courses, speak a lot about the little you know, and speak a little about the lot that you don't know. Do you understand what that means? So speak a lot about the little that you know. If you only know about Tawheed, that's all you talk about. You might not even know how to pray properly yourself. Then only speak about that which you know. Because sometimes we have people speaking about stuff that they don't know. And that is a sad state. Then we get people creating confusion and misunderstandings and misconceptions in Islam. Where people start speaking out of their own wisdom instead of what is actually found in the pages of the Quran. So when we see this spoken about in this beautiful hadith, we see that we are told to narrate, even if it's just one little small concept. And that we are a religion that is for all of mankind. Not just for the young, not just for the old, not just for the smart, not for the Arab, not for the non-Arab, for the whole of humanity. It's the first message of its kind for the whole of humanity. Do you know that? We often say that, but do you know that? Did you know that it's the message for the whole of humanity? Maybe at home you're thinking, well, the Bible was also a message for the whole of humanity. Then you need to show us a verse where it says that. Jesus himself says, according to the Bible, may Allah be pleased with him, he says, speak to the Jew only. This message is for the lost sheep of the tribe of Israel. Not for the sheep outside of Israel, for the lost sheep of the tribe of Israel, because they had already been scattered all over. Paul is the only person who comes along and says, no, I'm going to speak to the Gentiles. And why did he say he's going to speak to the Gentiles? Because the Jews refused to listen to him. The Jews rejected his message. And because he was winning no support, he then claimed, and you can read it in the text, it's written in the Bible itself, he went and spoke to the Jews. Why did the Jews not accept what he was saying? Do you know why? Have you ever asked yourself, why did Paul not get accepted by the Jews? Yet the other disciples had more success with the Jews. Why is it that Paul, the original corrupter of the New Testament, had problems with people of his own language? He was a Jew himself. Well, Paul was a Pharisee. Paul was a learned man. He was studying to be a Pharisee. How old was Paul? He was a youngster. Maybe he was 16, maybe he was 18. He wasn't 30 or 40 like we like to see depicted in movies and films and that Christians like to give. He was a young man. How do we know that? Because he wasn't around during the time that Jesus was around, may Allah be pleased with him, because he was still studying. When did they start studying in those days? 9, 10, 11, they went to study. When did they graduate? 17, 18, 19, maybe 20. He was still studying. He didn't complete his studies when he went on his mission to attack Christians. So we know he's a young man. He was a youngster. You know the story where the Bible records of Daniel in the lion's den? It talks about how this man who was very pious was thrown into the lion's den. And in the pictures they have this young man of 13, maybe 14 years old. He was 80 years old. You see the stories, how they get mixed up and how they get confused to purposely mislead people. And so the point of what I'm trying to say is that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was told by Allah that this message was for the whole of humanity, not just for a select few. Not so that it would be corrupted somewhere along the line and you're not having any results, and so now you open it up to the rest of humanity. It was already claimed in the beginning that it was a message for the whole of humanity. It wasn't decided later when they didn't have success that no, now it needs to open up to the rest of humanity. The Mormon Church, the Church of the Latter-day Saints, which is a Christian denomination, their book says that if you are white, like me, then you are like some. In other words, you are blessed by God, and you are a spirit, because they believe that there are many gods on many different planets, and they're having little children, celestial children. And those children, those spirits are given human bodies on planet Earth. So we are children from some gods on different planets, and that's how we took the form we are. But if you're not white, you are demons. So what do you think happened when the church started to want to make headway into non-Caucasian, non-white communities? They changed it. They just changed the belief system. And then suddenly, oh, no, that's not actually what it meant. You don't find this in Islam. We don't readapt things as we go along. If it was like that, do you think the Arabs would have allowed themselves to be spoken about so negatively? They would have rewritten themselves in a lovely light in the Quran. They would never have allowed themselves to be called hard-headed, stiff-necked. They would have rewritten themselves in a nice way. This is why we know the same message has remained pure the whole way through. It's time for us to take a break. When we get back from the break, we'll continue, inshallah.
Pearls of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Abu Huraira, may Allah be pleased with him, narrated that the Messenger of Allah, peace be upon him, as saying, "Do you know what is backbiting?" The companion said, "Allah and His Messenger know best." Thereupon, the Holy Prophet said, "Backbiting implies you're talking about your brother in a manner which he does not like." It was said to the Prophet, peace be upon him, "What is your opinion about this? That if I actually find that failing in my brother which I made a mention of?" He said, "If that failing is actually found in him what you assert, you in fact backbited him, and if that is not in him, it is a slander." Sahih Muslim, Volume 4, Book of Virtues and Good Manners, Chapter 1069, Hadith number 6265.
Every human being can agree to disagree or disagree to agree. Dispute superstitions and refute the myth which is created around the word religion, which is misinterpreted, misconstrued, and misjudged. Let's wake up from delusion and step into the world of reality with confidence. Find all the answers to confront or defy, reject or accept, dispute or challenge when caught in crossfire.
Misconceptions clarified, falsehood exposed, and truth revealed. Discover the reality with Dr. Zakir Naik in Crossfire, every Saturday at 8:30 p.m. and repeat telecast at 12:30 p.m. UK on Peace TV. Peace TV presents over 100 million viewers at one of the largest peace conferences in the world, addressing a sea of spellbound spectators. Over 30 world-renowned orators on Islam with credentials impeccable.
The truth of Islam.
Deen is your way of life.
It is our duty, our obligation.
By following the Quran and Sunnah,
we will give the message to one and all.
With articulation exquisite.
Read the book of Allah.
Islam is the easy way. It's the simple way.
Remind each other.
The Muslim is not a source of harm for other people.
Collaborate with the people for good.
This is the call of Islam.
With the mission of spreading the truth of Islam.
Do what you can to spread the word of Islam.
Wherever we are,
live like Muslims.
Use your power.
Allah is saying, why do you need anything else? This Quran is self-sufficient.
The only book on the face of the globe, the Quran.
How a human being should lead his life is given in this instruction manual, the glorious Quran.
For peace to prevail on earth in Peacemakers. Next on Peace TV. The value of money in the hereafter will be measured by its proper use in the present.
يا أيها الذين آمنوا أنفقوا مما رزقناكم من قبل أن يأتي يوم لا بيع فيه ولا خلة ولا شفاعة.
According to the glorious Quran, one of the best ways to use your money is to spend it in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by spreading His message of Islam. Peace TV is a non-profit Islamic satellite television channel that is primarily dedicated for just that cause, the proper presentation of Islam. It's a great choice to invest in it and a golden opportunity to purify your wealth in a way that pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Support Peace TV. Send your zakat and donations to IRFI Al Ryan Bank, 47 Calthorpe Road, Birmingham, UK, B151TH. Pound account number 011-32301. IBAN GB49ARAY 30008301132301. Sort code 300083. Swift BIC code ARAY GB22. Please confirm your contribution at support@peacetv.tv.
Support Peace TV, the solution for humanity.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back. We are continuing with our series and looking at Dawah Ilallah and how to be effective in Dawah we do. And we are basing this not on our own understanding, but what we find in the pages of the Quran and in the authentic hadith. And so this is where we are confining ourselves to, and we are talking specifically on how to call to Allah. This is the only acceptable Dawah, not because I say so, because it's the formula that we find the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ following. We find it's the same formula that all the prophets gave. It's not a formula that we find only found in Islam. We find this in all religions in the world. However, they manipulated, changed, or forgot that message. Or they replaced it when it suited them to change their doctrines or beliefs as they went along. Let's continue with the book that we are dealing with and read the next section.
The Prophet ﷺ said, Deen is advice. We asked for whom? Ya Rasulullah. He said, for the sake of Allah, His Prophet, His book, your leader, and for all the people. Tamim Dari radiallahu ta'ala anhu narrated this in Sahih al-Muslim. So every Muslim has a duty of advising to others towards Allah. The same advice is given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when He says.
Okay, before we go on to the next part of that, let's have a look at this. Deen is advice. The Deen of Islam is advice. And so when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is asked, who's it for? He says, for all of humanity. It is a message for all people of all times. And we are to give advice to help people. Are we supposed to tell people, you are supposed to be at this point? Do we say to people, all of you, we need to be at exactly the same point at the same? No. We are to give advice. We are to speak kindly to one another. We are to say to brother, you know, because I have realized this already, and I've realized that I must grow my beard, We don't force somebody else. Maybe he's getting rid of other issues in their life. Maybe they're overcoming drug addiction. Maybe they're overcoming spousal abuse. Maybe that's what Allah is working with them for. We can give advice to them. Give a gentle advice. We have to use wisdom when we speak. And so when we see the deen of Islam is giving advice, to giving guidance to mankind. And so we see in this the narration that is given for the sake of Allah. We're not doing it for our own purpose. It's for the sake of the prophets, for the books, for the leaders of all the people. So this is very, very important. Sometimes, we are all at different levels. Every single person is at a different level as we walk on this road towards finding truth, climbing closer and getting closer to Allah. Our whole lives we are getting closer to Allah. We should be looking at 5 years ago and we say, 5 years ago I was wondering what type of Muslim I was. But if I look now, I've really come along. It's as if I wasn't even a Muslim back then. That's how we should be looking. But if we're looking back now and we're going, sure, 5 years ago I was far better than I am now, then there's time for work to be done. So we should be continuously growing. Maybe to use a word that atheists would use, we are continuously evolving. We are continuously moving forward. We shouldn't be in the same position. We should be learning new things all the time. I remember there were certain things that I didn't think were important 2 years ago even. Today I think they're very, very important. But I can't burden other people with that burden because they have other things that they are dealing with that are very, very important to them, that Allah is working with them. So I have to be gentle. I have to be cautious of what we say. But the main idea of the deen is to grow closer to Allah. We must use a little bit of wisdom when we do this, not to chase people away. There is a young man in South Africa that I met who's a bodybuilder. You know these bodybuilders? They like to stand in front of the mirror all the time. They walk around like this all the time. He's one of those guys. But he's a very genuine young man. Very, very sincere guy. Good heart. Everything about him is good. But he's disappointed with Islam. Because he's been told by all the scholars there that it's haram. You're not allowed to do bodybuilding. Haram, haram. Everywhere he goes, it's haram, 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 haram. No one said to him, it's halal. Everyone says it's haram. And so this poor young man, he wants to give up on Islam. He wants to pack it up because he wants to do his sport. Where was the wisdom when the people were talking to him? Yes, we don't want him to stand there in underwear, with their spray-painted bodies. But there's a gentler way you could have done it. There's a much more simpler way. You said, alhamdulillah, you're looking after your body. That's important. It's good that you have pride in yourself. It's good to see that you're not messing up your body with drugs and alcohol and smoking. Much better ways to deal with him. And gently allow Allah to work in his life. Encourage him. Take him out for the day. Brag about how well he's doing. But being genuine, not lying, of course. If you're lying, then it's no point. Help that person to come to Islam voluntarily. Instead of scaring them and telling them how bad everything is, then they won't come to Islam. They won't stay in Islam. Then they start doubting things. We have to use wisdom in all that we do. Very, very important. So we want to talk about the do's, remember, more than the don'ts. Even though the don'ts are important, but when you mature, we can talk more about the don'ts. When somebody is still fragile, and they're still in the beginning stages of Islam, or they've just reverted, or they're not very good Muslims, and they're only now committing back to Islam properly. It's not time for the no's. It's only time for yeses. But when that brother has been a strong Muslim for the 10 years, then you can go to him and you can give him harder stuff to listen to. You can give him more of a burdensome message. Because he's able to handle it at that time. Because he's become stronger spiritually. So he can handle it. But you don't give that same message. So you have to use a bit of wisdom at home. And what I'm saying is, yes, you must correct people's behavior. But you must understand what level they're at. Are they going to be able to handle this burden that you're going to put on them? Are they going to be able to handle what you're going to say to them? So deen is giving advice. But it's giving advice in a way that we are not preventing that person from growing. We're not preventing that person from becoming closer to Allah. Let's read the ayah from the Quran.
By Al-Asr, verily man is in loss, except those who believe and do righteous good deeds and recommend one another to the truth and recommend one another to patience.
So, alhamdulillah, look at this, how beautiful the Quran put. I gave a long speech and it was all over the place. Here, it's so clear. This is why we know that the Quran is written by Allah. It's not a human hand. With a human hand, we find that we will go all over the place trying to describe a simple concept. Yet Allah, in one word, Like the simple word that we looked at last week about the word magnify. See, Christians get the idea magnify as jumping around and screaming and shouting. But magnify simply means to zone in on, to concentrate on. You see, what a different understanding, how Allah speaks with one word and can mean so much more. It's a way we interpret things that are dangerous. And here we see in this text that man is in loss. We are lost. No matter how clever we are, no matter how many theories we live by, no matter how many mathematical equations we've solved, no matter how many toys we have to make our lives easier, vacuum cleaners that clean the house for themselves, and computers that think for themselves, and all sorts of other things. We're still at loss. We're still very, very primitive creatures. Or if you want to know how primitive we are, go to a dentist's room. Look at those things. They look like they come out of the dark ages. All those instruments and things that pull open your mouth and pliers and all sorts of things. Those are archaic instruments. Go to an operating theater and see those big hacksaws and things that they've got in there. Scary stuff. But we say, oh, look how far we've come. You know, how advanced. We're lost. We're still at loss. And Allah says, but those people who have light at the end of the tunnel, who have made it, those are the ones who have accepted the deen. Those who believe, those who have accepted, they are less lost. Because at least we have a lamp to follow us to go through this darkness. There's a caves in South Africa called the Kango Caves. Very famous throughout the world. Beautiful caves. But they go deep, deep down under the ground. I have one phobia. I'm not afraid of anything except going underground. I am terrified. I won't even go to the basement of a parking lot. You know where you park your car underneath? I can't even park my car there. I'm terrified of anything under the ground. So off I went to the Kango Caves, and I decided that I'm going to go and get over my fear. And as we were going, there were you have to go down and down and down in these beautiful caves, absolutely beautiful. But of course, me being terrified, the lights went off, and I was stuck in that place in absolute darkness. And you can't see what is up and what is down, what's left and what is right. It's so tight, those spaces, and I'm already freaking out and getting claustrophobic as it is. Now with no lights, even worse. So I'm imagining all these weird creatures that have been living down there for 1,000 years that are going to come and get me and come and grab me. No matter how intelligent, I jump out of airplanes, I do surfing, I do all sorts of adventure sports. But when I was there, in that place, I was like a 2-year-old child, shivering and shaking and quaking like a little kid. Because I knew that I had no idea what I was doing. And only these people that were guiding me knew what they were doing. So we have to put our trust in people that have more knowledge. And so in this narration, we have that same type of analogy going on. The world is lost like me. But if we turn in belief and we trust the person or the one who will lead us out of this darkness, out of this cave, out of this fear, then we will be successful, inshallah. But we have to actually make a move. If I sat there and say, well, at least I trust the people to get me out of the cave, and I just sit there, will I get out of the cave? No, I've got to get up. I've got to get off my feet, and I've got to move, and I've got to follow their voices, and I've got to concentrate on what they're saying. And if they say go left, I've got to go left. If they say right, I've got to go. I can't see anything. They know. But if I sit, that's no good. Belief by just sitting and saying, okay, now I know what's going on. That's nonsense. That's not belief. That's just stupidity. No wonder the atheist looks at you and thinks you're crazy. It's an active sport. Not that it's a sport, but you know what I mean. You know, they say there's passive sports and active sports. This is an active religion. It's not a passive religion. It's not sitting somewhere and hoping everything's going to work out for the best. It's getting up and doing something about what you're asking. So it's a self-service religion. Well, that's all the time we have for this week. Make sure you join us next week again when we go deeper into looking at Dawah Ilallah. So from all of us here in the audience and from myself, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
مشفق متعطف لا ينتهي بالحصر ما أعطاه رب رحيم مشفق مشفق متعطف.
This is Asim Luqman Al-Hakim, and you're watching Peace TV, the solution for humanity.